How to Use Merchant Cash Flow Wisely by avibusinesssolutions.com. A strong sales week can still leave you short on cash by Friday. That is the reality for many small businesses. If you want to understand how to use merchant cash flow, start by looking at what your daily card sales are really telling you about operating money, timing gaps, and borrowing capacity. Merchant cash flow is not just revenue moving through your business. It is the rhythm of your incoming card payments, your outgoing expenses, and the amount of working capital you can realistically put to work without creating pressure next week or next month. For merchants, especially those with fluctuating sales, using cash flow well is often the difference between controlled growth and constant catch-up. What merchant cash flow actually means. In practical terms, merchant cash flow is the money your business brings in through sales, especially credit and debit card transactions, compared with what it needs to spend to stay operational. That includes payroll, rent, inventory, utilities, subscriptions, vendor payments, and debt obligations. For many retail stores, restaurants, service businesses, e-commerce brands, and independent operators, cash flow matters more than headline revenue. You can post strong monthly sales and still run into trouble if your expenses hit before customer funds clear, if inventory ties up too much money, or if seasonality changes your average weekly deposits. That is why cash flow is such an important lens for financing. Lenders and funding providers often review merchant deposits to assess business stability and repayment ability. Business owners should be doing the same before deciding how much to spend, save, or borrow. How to use merchant cash flow for day-to-day decisions. The best use of merchant cash flow starts with short-term control. Before you think about expansion, use your incoming sales to stabilize the basics. That means protecting the expenses that keep the doors open and the business producing revenue. Payroll is usually at the top of that list. If your staff drives service, sales, or fulfillment, missed or delayed payroll creates bigger problems than almost any other expense. Rent and core vendor payments come next, followed by utilities, software, and recurring operating costs. If your cash flow is uneven, the goal is not to spend as soon as deposits hit. The goal is to allocate incoming funds based on business priority and timing. This is where many owners get stuck. They treat a strong deposit day as extra money, even though it may already be committed to next week's obligations. Good cash flow management is less about optimism and more about visibility. Match spending to your sales cycle. If your business sees daily card volume but weekly expense spikes, you need to manage timing carefully. A restaurant may process strong weekend sales but face payroll and food supplier bills early in the week. A contractor may collect deposits now but not receive final payment until a project milestone. An online seller may see steady orders while advertising costs and fulfillment fees hit in batches. Using merchant cash flow effectively means matching deposits to their actual due dates. When you do that, you can identify whether you have a temporary gap, a structural problem, or a real opportunity to reinvest. How to use merchant cash flow to fund growth. Once the essentials are covered, merchant cash flow can become a growth tool. The key is to invest in moves that increase revenue, improve efficiency, or reduce recurring cost pressure. Inventory is a common example. If demand is proven and you know faster-moving products generate a reliable margin, using cash flow to restock or buy at better pricing can make sense. Marketing can also be a smart use, but only when you know your customer acquisition numbers. Spending on ads without a clear return can drain liquidity fast. Equipment, software, and staffing can also be solid uses of cash flow when they solve a bottleneck. If a faster POS system reduces checkout delays or a new hire helps you serve more clients, the spend may support stronger future deposits. But the timing matters. Growth spending should come from predictable cash flow, not from the part of your balance needed to survive a slower month. Keep expansion tied to measurable return. A simple rule helps here. If a use of cash flow does not improve revenue, margins, or operational capacity in a reasonably short window, treat it carefully. Cosmetic upgrades, non-essential subscriptions, and one-off experiments can wait if your cash position is tight. That does not mean every investment needs instant payback. It means you should know why you are spending and what result you expect. Confident business decisions still need numbers to back them up. When merchant cash flow supports financing. Merchant cash flow also plays a major role when you are considering funding. If your deposits are consistent, they may support options like short-term business funding, a business line of credit, or other working capital solutions designed for active merchants. This can be useful when there is a clear gap between when money comes in and when money needs to go out. For example, if you need to buy inventory before a seasonal spike, repair essential equipment, or cover payroll during a temporary slowdown, financing tied to your actual business activity may help you move faster. Still, financing should support cash flow, not replace healthy cash flow management. If you borrow to cover a recurring problem that never gets fixed, the pressure usually comes back. If you borrow to bridge timing, capture profitable demand, or solve a short-term operational issue, the decision may be far more strategic. Businesses that work with solution-focused providers like AVI Business Solutions often look for speed and simplicity, but speed only helps when the use of funds is clear. Mistakes to avoid when using merchant cash flow. One of the biggest mistakes is confusing gross sales with available cash. Card volume can look strong on paper, while chargebacks, processing fees, taxes, refunds, and overdue bills reduce the usable amount. Another mistake is overcommitting during peak periods. Seasonal businesses often assume strong months will continue longer than they do. If you increase fixed costs too quickly in response to a temporary sales spike, the slow period can hit hard. A third issue is stacking too many payment obligations on top of daily operations. If you already have payroll, rent, suppliers, and marketing pulling from your inflows, adding new debt or recurring software costs without budget room can compress cash flow fast. There's also the temptation to use business cash for personal spending among owner-operators who receive regular deposits, which can create serious visibility problems. Keeping business and personal cash separate is not just cleaner bookkeeping, it's also safer. It gives you a more accurate picture of what the business can actually support. How to improve merchant cash flow before it becomes a problem. If cash flow feels tight, the fix is not always more funding. Sometimes the biggest wins come from tightening operations. Start with receivables and payment timing. If customers take too long to pay, shorten invoicing cycles where possible and make payment easier. Please review the auto-renewing expenses and cut the ones that don't deliver value. Negotiate vendor terms if your payment schedule is too aggressive for your sales cycle. Please take a hard look at your inventory as well. Slow-moving stock traps cash that could be used elsewhere. So does overordering based on guesswork instead of actual sales patterns. Even small changes here can create more breathing room. Payment processing also matters. Faster settlement times and reliable transaction visibility can improve planning. If most of your revenue comes from card sales, understanding when funds land in your account is key to using merchant cash flow effectively. A simple framework for smarter use. If you want a practical way to manage merchant cash flow, think in 3 buckets. First, protect operations. Second, reserve for timing gaps and surprises. Third, invest in growth only after the first 2 are covered. That approach is not flashy, but it works. It keeps your business from reacting emotionally to daily deposits and helps you make decisions based on what the business needs most right now. There is no single formula for every merchant. A restaurant, a salon, an online store, a medical practice, and a home service company all handle cash differently. But the principle stays the same. Cash flow should give your business flexibility, not false confidence. When you treat merchant cash flow as a tool instead of just a number on a dashboard, you make faster, cleaner decisions. And when the next opportunity or cash crunch shows up, you are far more likely to be ready for it.
Running a small business means being ready for anything. But what happens when the big banks say no? At AVI Business Solutions, we say yes.